Hey, my reactors, so I'm back with Women of the Bible, Mary of Bethany. Her character, Mary appears to have been a single woman, totally devoted to Jesus. The gospel portrays her, by way of contrast with her sister Martha, as a woman of few words. As Jesus neared the time of his triumphal entry into Jerusalem prior to Passover, she performed a gesture of great prophetess significance, one that could offended Judas, the disciple who betrayed Jesus. Her sorrow, she wept at the tomb of her brother Lazarus, and must have experienced great sorrow at the death of Jesus. Her joy, she had done something beautiful for Christ. Her story, Jerusalem was swollen with worshippers, having swallowed hundreds of thousands of pilgrims who had come to celebrate the annual Passover feast. Every one of them, it seemed, had heard tales of the Rabbi Jesus. I wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't been there, one man exclaimed. I assure you, Lazarus drew his last breath a full 4 days before the Nazarene ever arrived. My cousin saw the whole thing, said another. According to her, Jesus simply shouted his name and Lazarus came out of the tomb and still bound in his grave, clothed. I hear the rabbi is coming to Jerusalem to be crowned king during Passover, said the first man. Better if he stay home, said another. The chief priests say the whole story is nonsense, that Jesus is a rabbi Rosa who will soon have the Romans up in arms against us all. The rumors spread quickly like water boiling over the edge of a pot. Everywhere men speculate about whether Jesus will return for the Passover celebration. And all the while people kept chasing after Mary, inquiring about her brother. Had he really been dead 4 days? Didn't he smell when he came stumbling out of the tomb? What was it like to live in the same house with a ghost? Did he eat and sleep? Could you see straight through him? Did he simply float through the air whenever he went? She could hardly blame them for their crazy questions. Why shouldn't they be curious about the amazing event that had taken place in Bethany several weeks earlier? How could they know that Lazarus was as normal as any other little man? After all, raising people from the dead wasn't your everyday kind of miracle. These days she felt a rush of joy through her, like wine overflowing a cup. Whenever she looked at Lazarus, her own flesh and blood had been called out of darkness by a man who filled with light. How she longed to see Jesus again. But shadows framed the edges of her happiness. No amount of celebration could erase the memory of Jesus as he wept that day outside her brother's tomb. Even as others were celebrating the most spectacular miracle imaginable, he seemed strangely quiet. What was he thinking as he gazed at them? She wondered. She wished he could tell her. She could plumb the secrets of his heart. When Jesus finally returned to Bethany before the Passover, Martha served a feast in his honor. As Jesus was reclining at the table with the other guests, Mary entered the room and anointed his head with a pint of expensive perfume. Its fragrance filled the whole house. The disciples, Judas, failing to appreciate her gesture objects strenuously. Why wasn't his perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages, though he actually cared nothing for the destitute. Judas was the keeper of the common purse, a man always looking for a chance of fattening his own pockets. But rather than scold Mary for her extravagance, Jesus praised her, saying, "Why are you bothering this woman? She had done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me." When she poured the perfume on my head, she did it to prepare me for burial. I tell you the truth, whenever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she had done will also be told in memory of her. From her first encounter with Christ, Mary seems to have pursued one thing above all, the deepest possible relationship with him. She soaked up his teaching, took his promises to heart, listened for every change or inflection that will yield more clues about him. Love gave her insights that others missed. Somehow she must have understood that Jesus would not enter Jerusalem to lasting acclaim, but to death and dishonor. For a time, the light itself would appear to be smothered by darkness. While everyone else was busy celebrating Jesus' triumph and raising Lazarus, Mary stood quiet beside him, sharing his grief. Christ found Mary's extravagant act of adoration a beautiful thing, assuring everyone that she would be remembered forever for the way she lavished herself upon him. Mary of Bethany was a woman unafraid of expressing her love, determined to seek the heart of God, a prophet who gestures speak eloquently even from a distance of the 2,000 years. And I'll be back with another segment of Women of the Bible.